Today I'm going to talk about a topic, that's a bit charged for some people, which is not unusual really because we talk about, struggles in relationships, narcissism. We've talked about, just so many different topics that people struggle with relationships. Even sexuality can be a charged topic. So we really navigate a lot of different directions. Our Sunday presentations are a bit more focused on spiritual, inspirational talks. The Friday ones seem to be a little more pop psychology topics, modern day topics, stuff that's going on for people. Just it could be latest planetary alignments to just personal struggles. So it's a little more psychology Friday nights and a little more spirituality on Sundays, okay? Now, today, as I was starting to say, we're going to talk about something that might seem a little more geared for women, but really it still does apply for men, at least peripherally. The topic today has to do with abortion and miscarriages. So, what a heavy topic. Even as I say that, what we're going to talk about, the title, I can just feel already that wave of energy from folks watching. Whether even if you're watching 3 months after we film this, it doesn't matter. I can already sense. I'm fairly intuitive. Most of you would know that by now, but I can just feel that wave, and I can even see some of the faces in our groups and so forth that were watching online and probably feel that. Some of you have had miscarriages, didn't know you had them. Some of you have had them, do know that you had them. Some of you were fine with it. Others were, in some ways, wounded severely. Same with abortion. Some of you are really, really horrified by the experience. Others felt like it was a fairly simple, innocuous kind of necessity. So there's a lot of different dimensions, a lot of different perspectives on this. Now, a couple of people have had sessions this week with that very topic. Some with one, some with a few abortions. And, it just seems like such a strange topic because in a way it involves our health, but yet there's political strains into it, social strains into it, economic strains. There's these tentacles coming from different places entering. And, if you argue this politically, you're never going to get anywhere. It'll just go on and on, like all political things. They're designed to go nowhere because they're ego-based. It's an ego-based system. So, yes, clearly, we have the right to decide what's happening with our body. And then somebody says, well, you have the right to decide abortions, but not allowing yourself, a medical version of suicide, So this compassionate way of checking out when you're in a lot of pain. You're not allowed to do this, but you are allowed to do that, and on and on and on. And then at what age are you really allowed? And that goes, again, politics and social systems. I'm not really interested in that at all. I'm just giving you a spiritual perspective, And one of the first things that I shared with either of the people that brought it up in sessions this week, first thing I said, I understand. I do, and we should all. You don't jump into your stuff, your opinions, your religions, and religions are mostly political, even though they're seemingly separate. Church and state, they're not. They're very political. They're affiliated with politics in many ways, but they're also by themselves very political. So I just say to women, look, I understand, it's okay. Sorry that you went through that. Comfort people. Try to understand, comfort, share compassion with people. That's the first goal. It doesn't matter what you think is right or wrong. In one case, and she might be watching, but in one case, I remember she said, even from the pulpit, they went to church. They were Catholic, and they went to church, and the priest was discussing even alternative forms of pregnancy, other than just straightforward traditional, across the board, whether it's position, timing, whatever, just from the pulpit said it's a sin, and you're going to go to hell. And so for using alternative means. whether it's test tube babies or whatever else it might be. It's interesting because what audacity it takes to stand at the pulpit and tell someone. It's interesting because I stand here and tell you opinions, right? But I'm not telling you you're going to go to hell eternally. So, I might advise you, hey, you might want to consult a psychic about this, or you might want to have a session with me about that. You might want to consider changing your diet if you're dealing with this. Those are opinions, and for me, they're generally going to be successful in their application. And that in itself, Jesus himself saying, by the fruits you shall know them. To know if something works for you, to know if something's right, look at its success rate. I feel pretty successful in the things I advise people. Whatever those things might be, relationship advice or whatever it is. But I still wouldn't tell somebody they're going to go to hell because I or my religion, which I don't have one, thank God, no offense to you who do, but that according to my religion, which is built by people and then organized by people, and seemingly sustained by people, but there's very little sustain in it. My little system tells me you're going to go to hell. I don't even know you. You're in the audience. I don't know your system. I don't know your condition. I don't know your circumstances. It doesn't matter because you're going to go to hell. I thought that was just what a sad thing to hear that some little girl, some young girl, I'm saying, hears that, and she gives birth to a child alternative ways, and and then suffers physically from it, lots of postpartum and other things coming up. It's just horrible that you would put somebody in that. Now here's what's interesting about that. One thing that's interesting about it is that the person you told they're going to go to hell for this, you already put them there. You already put them there in their mind. You already put them there circumstantially. They're now living in hell, and in a sense, what I would tell you is the person that put you in hell is himself going to be in hell, his own version. If his version is after you die, he'll experience some form of hell after he dies for sending this girl to hell while she was still alive. Now, I might be sounding a little bit pissed off or a little bit firm, but that's because it's insane to do that to people. Hurting people in any way is insane. I understand that in this universe things are an illusion, but in the illusion, it doesn't help to perpetuate an illusionary pain. It doesn't do us any good. Even if it's considered by some to be an illusion, it doesn't matter. It's still painful while you're here. So we need not perpetuate hell here or in the afterlife. Now, that's not what the talk's about, but that's a part of it. People have been really guilted and shamed with things like decisions like abortions. So let's be really clear. Is it right? Is it wrong? Does it hurt an entity? Does it not hurt an entity? Well, you'll just argue that forever. There's going to be, most of you are comfortable with what I'm saying. One in every so many is going to go, well, no, I don't agree. My politics says that that's wrong. My religion says it's wrong. Totally fine. I understand, but be careful not to drop into hell over it, and be careful not to put other people in hell over your opinions on that. Try to be nice. Try to be peaceful. Try to bring people peace. Try to bring them compassion and understanding. Now, on the flip side, am I being all flippant and careless, carefree about it? Am I saying, hey, don't worry, have 10 abortions, it doesn't matter, and keep, sleeping with whomever you want, get pregnant, oops, I'll just have another abortion? No, that's actually careless. It's irresponsible. First of all, just to be sleeping with everybody, but irresponsible. And if you say, well, it wasn't everybody, it was one person, well, then why didn't you want the baby? Well, because they tend to beat me up now and again, or they tend to not have a job, we're broke, and we're living out of our car. Why then are you with them? Irresponsible to be getting pregnant. Well, we couldn't afford contraception. Well, they actually give those things away, I think. As far as I understand, they don't do that anymore, but as far as I know, they give those away at Planned Parenthood. I don't even know if there's Planned Parenthood still exists. Sorry, man, I'm old. But, in clinics, there's ways, guys. There's no excuse. Well, my partner doesn't like wearing a condom. Then tell him to cut his penis off and stop using it. Don't let some shallow ass tell you I refuse to have sex unless we can go without a condom, tell them then, have fun. You know, I'm gonna practice responsible safe sex. Now, all that said, mind you, I've done stupid things in my life as irresponsible things. I call it stupid because that's what we called it then, back high school, Yeah, we didn't even think of consequences, There wasn't any major fatal diseases at the time, at least not constant around us. And we were careless about these things. We were kids. I mean, even if I could afford condoms as a kid, what am I going to do? Put them in my drawer and let my parents find them? That would have been a bit of a scene. So there was all kinds of reasons. And that brings us back to the fact that the concept of sexuality needs healed. The shame around it, let alone the potential offspring that can come from it, literal, biological, anatomical beings, entities, spirits coming in, not to mention metaphoric kinds of consequences, the emotional kind. So moving onwards here, both sides are a little off, and the population on this planet is 8 billion now, quadrupled in just a couple generations. If it quadruples again, guys, we're going to have 30,000 people within 100 years. Not good at all. But there's religions and cultures that perpetuate more children, have lots of children. You might be one of those families or cultures. I think that's great. Enjoy yourself, if that's your belief. It's irresponsible and it's pretty ridiculous when you look at the planet and its resources. You're bringing people in and perpetuating a pattern of self-destruction, really. Why? Because, my religion, my belief, my faith. But why did they say that? Well, my people believe because of this or that. A culture from 1,000 years ago, 10,000, whatever. Does that mean it applies today? Or my religion says so. Your religion says so, believe it or not, mostly because it's an incredibly perfect strategy to increase profit margins. You're creating your own sense of clientele, as it were. The more kids they have, the more your religion grows. The more it grows, the more profitable it becomes. So, when people say they're doing missionary work, they should be going out and doing, work with people to do changes. Let people get vasectomies and so forth, and help them get down. Again, I'm not expecting this to happen anytime soon. The cultures and the religions are going to fight that, but it's all programming. And so, speaking of programming, the shame that goes with people having abortions, and I'm so sorry, man, if that's you. So sorry about that. I remember, having that question for myself. What am I going to do? My family's going to give me a hard time because, I have 1 or 2 children or whatever. Oh, you can't afford children. You're not responsible enough. I got all that for having them. Not, you shouldn't have them, or in mine it was the one side that you can't afford them and shaming me to not have them. So it's an interesting thing to have to go through because you can't win either way. Somebody's going to complain. But I'm very grateful in my case that I had my children. However, if I was in and out of constant, relationship constantly, if I were completely broke living in my car, I can't imagine that I would have wanted to do something like that. So, and women are raped sometimes, and of course that's rare compared to the number of abortions. The number of abortions based on rape is rare compared to the number of just unwanted pregnancies. And also I don't agree that you should let the baby develop excessive number of months, and then decide. I would say try to do that early on. And when you say, well, the dad doesn't want to be involved, guys, if you're one of those, or if you have children that are like that, honest to God, man, get papers signed so that you never have to hear from that person again. Because the last thing you want, have a child with somebody you don't want to have a child with, and then deal with it legally till they're 18. That's as much hell. If I were the child and could speak, in the womb, I'd say, kill me now, man. I don't want to be part of you people. You people are nuts. So as inappropriate as I might sound, there's reason for that, So I'm just saying, understand that it's okay if you made that decision across the board. Go through the Bible, and what you're going to hear is this, based on what God has to say. You're going to have regrets. If you have an abortion, you might have regrets. But you'll have them about jobs you've taken and relationships you've chosen, whatever. You'll have, sometimes you eat certain foods and regret it. But the Bible is going to tell you, if you want to know what God thinks of regrets of any kind, including abortion, I've said this in classes before, did you learn from it? That's what God says. If you learned from it, wonderful. Close the door, done, let's move on. So, did you learn from the abortion? Well, if you had two, you could say, well, I guess I didn't because you got, two. Well, no. It might take you one and you learn something, two, you learn something, three, you learn something. You're always hopefully learning. But did you also learn, that's all credited, mind you, but did you also learn in the big picture? Stop having babies with people that you don't love. Stop having relationships and sex with people that you're not feeling a loving respect for. Yes, the old saying that, why have sex with somebody if you're not willing to have pregnancy? Well, that's a little narrow, but it's a good standard to go by. I would also just say, when you're with a person, talk about, it's part of what you're supposed to do, not just safe sex, but in terms of disease, but also, is there a chance of a child here if we have an accident, as it's called? If you're a girl and you say, no way, please stick to that. Unless you're in a partnership and you both mutually decide, of course, let's do this, let's have a baby. But otherwise, guys, stick to your integrities. Be honorable, impeccable with your word, please. If you say, I'm not going to have the baby, and you both risk, unprotected sex and get pregnant, I believe that the woman should stick to her agreement. All right, I'm not going to have the child. Or sign the guy off and leave him out of it. Do not go knocking on his door for money later. That's the integrity of it. I'm not telling you what year's right or wrong for you, but that's an integrity piece to it all. A lot of gals, I've had sessions, how many, tens of thousands of sessions over the years doing work with people, honest to God, tens of thousands. And there are a good fair number of those who have had, sexual issues and abuses, but also the wounding in the tummy, related to abortions. It can affect muscle tissue, muscle memory, soft tissue throughout the pelvis. It can affect orgasm, non-orgasm. It can affect guilt, shame, self-esteem, weight, excess weight, weight on the thighs and the hips. I'm not blaming everything, weight-wise on just abortions. I'm just saying it can have an effect. It can affect disease, whether it's endometriosis or whether it's bladder infections. All kinds of things can be an effect. But some people will say to me, so now what, Michael? I had abortions. What do I do? Did you learn? Are you, can you say you're done? Did you get it? Yes. Okay, then that helps a good portion of the past. Let it be gone. Now, what else can we do? We can do some body work to release some things. We can do some prayer work. But a lot of the gals are asking, but what about the child? Did I kill someone? I would say to you, generally, no. No. Most mystics and traditions throughout history understand that the soul enters typically at the first breath. There's still a biological thing happening. It's a biological thing happening. That's all. It's a process that is physical, developing. So are you putting the end to the biological thing? Yes, but there's not life in it. There's not a soul. You didn't kill a person, an entity. And I know some of you are going to be relieved to hear that, and some of you are going to be angry at me for saying that, but it is what it is. The soul typically enters at the first breath. A little bit sooner sometimes, a little bit later sometimes. I've shared some of these stories, but I remember when my youngest daughter was born, bless her, she's probably 34 by now. But when she was born, I remember I just finished it was a home birth. I remember I just finished a Course in Miracles class that I taught in the living room with a group of people in a circle, and walked them outside. See you all later. Thank you. I'm talking to the last few folks, and And I remember I was standing there talking, all of a sudden, I just saw this like a shooting star. And wow. So that was the soul of the child that came to the house, believe it or not. I'm not saying that's what it always looks like. Another one of my children, the soul just hovered around mom. Sometimes, into the body to feel her a little and outside. But typically, it's like saying they hang out in your aura. That's kind of a good description. They hang out in the room, in your aura, in your space, kind of just checking it out and getting a feel for, this is mom and good to see you again, because there's past life connections and so forth. But when you choose to abort a child earlier on, mind you, this developing thing, I'm not saying you don't love the baby. I'm not saying, because of course you put your hand on it, it responds. But guys, just because somebody will argue and say, the baby responds when I put my hand, that proves there's something. Believe this too. When you're connecting with the baby that you think is all here and some of it's out here, its heart out here quickens and gets excited. And since it's going to be its inhabited place, its home, its habitat, then that habitat responds too. That's one answer for that. Also, it's a biology, and believe it or not, plants respond to your touch. That doesn't mean that when you trim them, you've murdered your Dieffenbachia, your philodendron. It's okay. So I understand that people are going to have those different feelings and arguments about that. And I think it's beautiful. You should put your hands on your tummy and love the being, because to you, that's the symbol. Now, if you could see its soul hovering out here, you would almost be hard-pressed to feel any attachment to the thing in the tummy, because compared to the light being out here, oh my God, that being out there is like heaven versus earth. You could say, well, I really love earth, but when people pass over with near-death experiences, 99 out of 100 are like, what earth? Wow, look at that. The light, the glory, the sparkles, the peace, the joy. It's so much more intense. It's okay. This is what you know it to be, your child. So do that. Connect with it. Absolutely. It's like using a crystal or a sacred mountain or whatever, a sacred well to do your prayer work. God isn't all encapsulated in that well or in that crystal, but you can use it as a portal or a point of focus to connect with God, spirit, whatever. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like that. So I'm just saying it's all okay. And did you learn anything from it? And if you're suffering and you think, I know I did something wrong, but now that I heard Michael's talk, I don't have to worry, so I'll go out, get pregnant again, and have another abortion. I didn't say that at all. The karma is yours. The karma is not what you did to an entity, because you're not doing to an entity. It's not in there usually. But you are doing to yourself. Your lack of self-worth to be with people that aren't right for you. Your lack of self-worth to let your body be invaded like that time and again. And oh my God, I've heard some of the most gruesome stories of people doing abortions, having abortions, some of the seedy locations, and it's just bizarre. So all that adds to the whole, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's an abortion. It could have been your tonsils, but if it was in an alley somewhere, seedy behaviors, your body's going to remember that. I mean, it's going to be like, my God, who are these people? And they don't even seem to care. Somebody paid them, with a sack of money, and it's going to have yucky vibes, and that's not what you want with your body, with your soul, or even with a child if you did have one. You wouldn't want that energy. Now, good news is that 3 out of 4 times, maybe you could say 9 out of 10 times, when you had a child, like a baby, and you're pregnant, and you aborted, if there was a child soul that was wanting to enter, use common sense, guys. First of all, I was saying 9 out of 10 times that soul's going to come back in your next child anyway. I swear to God. It's not like it'll say, well, fine, you're going to be that way, then you could just get some other baby, No, they're going to come back to you. So if you've had children after abortions, often you still have the same soul come through. So that's pretty cool. At the same time, if you didn't have another child, it doesn't exclude this, because the child's soul may not, it's still not there. You didn't harm anything, so you don't have anything that needs to come back as your next child. But I'm saying if you did have a soul nearby, it wouldn't matter because typically it's going to come back. Now, what cases would there be for it to not come back in your family as your child? Well, a lot of things. For example, it could be a different partner completely. You got pregnant with one guy, had an abortion, you had another guy. The karma with that guy is very different. So even if there were a soul around, hanging around, it might not have even been a soul you would have felt great with because it would have been one that's karmically tied to the guy that you decided not to have a child with. And at the same time, yes, there's the instances where you say, okay, well, I moved on to somebody else. The other one died, unfortunately, and I loved them. Or unfortunately, we broke up due to a certain circumstance, but I still love them. There's still energy differences between the guys, a different karma, different path. In fact, that thing that happens sometimes, infant death, unexplained infant death, they used to call crib death, for example, it isn't unexplained as so much as it used to be a big mystery. They would say we don't know, it's just called crib death. What happened most of the time in crib death is that there's a certain frequency in the household, literally household and metaphorically the family energy, but there's an energy, there's a vibe, and a child comes through. Now, the child could say, I have a bunch of stuff from the past that I'm carrying, and I'd like to clear it. It could be horrible stuff, bad karma, or it could just be residual bits of lifetimes. And it says, I think I'm going to come in, I'm going to stay only for days or weeks, and I'm going to then check out because I'll be done. That's my clearing, my fulfillment time. I remember Edgar Casey, I shared this in a class somewhere in the past, but I remember Edgar Casey had some, rude lifetimes, couple of times, just a little bit harsh, like just not always sweet guy. And so a couple times really, really harsh. And because of his doings, the karma was with him. He one time incarnated as a bastard child to a king and queen, but as a bastard child. So he was sort of having to be hidden and in a monastery, and naturally the powers that be find out, and then they send an assassin and they murdered him. I think he was 12, maybe 8, 10, 12, somewhere in there. And you and I would go, God, that's horrible. But the soul of Casey was like, let's do it. Let's get it over with. I did the same to someone else somewhere along the line. Let's just clear it. So there are more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt of in all your philosophies, and vengeance is not ours, really. We can't know or claim to know why things happen and why the repercussions, the vengeance, and so on. And it isn't God that says I'm going to get you for that. So that's an example, the crib deaths. And so don't think that even if you want to believe that there's a child involved, or that you had a child pass away, oh, I know it's the karma because I did abortion. Oh my God, it was God getting back at me. Guys, not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell. Or in heaven or on earth. It's not a chance. God is not punishing us ever. It's our own karmic conscience. You could say karma and conscience are somewhat the same word. But it's not at all God punishing us. But it is a compensation of sorts, because it is our own karma, our own feelings, our own beliefs. So when a woman says, I had an abortion, I've had women come to me and say I'm struggling with a certain issue, let's say bladder infections or whatever it is. Sometimes it's a bladder infection. Other times I'll say, because I do intuitive readings with people as well as healing, and I say, you had an abortion, didn't you? Now, if I said that and they said no, then I would be inaccurate, and I would have a record of inaccuracy if I was inaccurate a lot. But no, I didn't find no, and find inaccurate. Very rare that I would be inaccurate on something. Maybe I misspoke it, or maybe I misperceived it and got something wrong in it, but not typically inaccurate. And I say, you had an abortion, didn't you? Yes, how did you know? It's a vibe I can feel. Or sometimes it's sexual abuse that they're carrying in their body. My point is not about my accuracy. My point is to say that it can be felt by some of us that there's something going on. And how am I feeling that? Because you're putting it out there. It's in your vibes. Now, if I'm right that it's in your vibes and that's how I pick it up, then is it also not right that if you're putting it out there, it's in your vibes, that that's also what the universe does? You know, the universe is saying, sweetheart, we sense that you're really carrying a lot of shame and guilt around this. Your soul, yes, I really am. And then, well, okay, what is it going to take to clear it so you can find peace? You know, and on some level in our ego insanities, you know, we say, well, you know, I guess, oh, I'm just such a terrible person. I guess I need to lose a child, or I need to have another child that I want to have, and I miscarry because it's the guilt, you know, it's my penance for abortion. And yes, it kind of is, but it's yours, not anybody else's, not God's. Yeah, sometimes that's what you'll do, have an abortion, and then you'll have a couple miscarriages. But it isn't karmic hand of God from the heavens. It's you believing that that's what you need to do because you're feeling so upset inside. Even if you don't know you're feeling upset, it's probably still there and being carried. So you need to, forgive my phrase, get over yourself. You need to let yourself off the hook. Now, do I mean be flippant the other side and go, it doesn't matter, carefree, que sera, sera, let's have another abortion? No, I'm saying learn from it. And by learn means learn to care for other beings in case you have a child, of course, or you are pregnant and you want to bring it through. Love it, of course, but love yourself. Love yourself enough to not have unwanted pregnancies. Love yourself enough to not be with somebody that's, you know, inappropriate, or that's going to say, you know, you're going to have an abortion whether you like it or not, I insist, or I'm going to leave you, and then, oh God, I don't want that, so I'm going to do it, you know, with or without already having children with them. Again, are you agreeing to have unprotected sex? Then, you know, then you're agreeing to not get pregnant. Then don't get pregnant, guys, girls. But at the same time, you know, if I were really, really feeling called to have a child and someone else didn't want it, I would sign papers, let them sign papers, be done, and get out of their life. Because I wouldn't want them tracking me down and getting money from me, nor would I want them tracking me down and causing any other problems. I'd say, I'm making this decision and you don't want the child. At the very least, that's what I would do, if not aborting. I would just say, you know, I'm going to find another way to clear this and not have you involved. So I know so many different people have different perspectives of these things, but just hang in there with me as best you can. The child doesn't enter usually until birth. You're fairly safe there. But learn your lessons. You're being irresponsible, and that will bring karma based on your own consciousness. Yes, miscarriages are often repercussions. You could call it karmic, but you can also call it anatomical. Your body's affected, sometimes drastically, from abortions. And then it will affect, you know, whether it's infections or whatever else, it can affect your body. It can affect your menses, you know, menstruation, your PMSing, and of course, menopause, or, you know, is another time when a lot of that old stuff can come back and really haunt a person. But guys, if a soul is really, really supposed to be coming through you, when I say guys, I mean girls too, obviously. But when a soul, if it's really yours, really meant to come to you, do you really think you can stop it by a mistake and I don't want to be pregnant, I'm only 14 and my family will kill me? Get the abortion, you're 14. And if that's what you need to do, then if that's what you need to do, do it. If that's what you want and that's what you want to do. Because I've also known people who have been absolutely disowned and tossed into orphanages at 14 because they got pregnant. That goes back to the beginning of time in the Dark Ages, the people being so mistreated, for just mistakes. Mistakes are supposed to be forgiven. That's all. They're not supposed to be punished. They're supposed to be forgiven. Not enabling mistakes. But if a person, like Jesus says, comes to you and says, I really get it, I'm sorry, should you forgive them? He says, yes. When they're sincerely going, I got it, apology and amends, I'm done, I got it, that is already fertile ground for forgiveness. He didn't actually say, forgive even if people are insincere, even if people will do it again and again, and even if they're in the middle of harm, just pretend it's not happening. He didn't actually say it that way. His words when he's saying forgive 70 times 70 and so on, when he's saying that, he says when they come with a sincere, the word he uses is repentance. And repentance means apology and amends. And amends means I got it and I'm not going to repeat this mistake. So if people are sincere when they apologize to you, meaning apology and amends, then do your best to forgive, and that means to not hate them and to affirm there's light in them and wish them well. Whether they're with you or gone, wish them well. But if a child's meant to come through you, it's going to come through you. It'll be your next child. It's okay. If it's meant to come through you and you say, oh no, but I didn't have any more children after my abortion, so it didn't. There may likely not have even been a soul there. Yes, it was a beautiful biological experience. That's great. So is sometimes your most yummy foods. It's a wonderful biological taste, flavor. I'm not limiting child to just, having a sandwich. I'm just saying that biological things can be beautiful, and they can be, so is lovemaking, pleasurable, beautiful. It's the way it is. It's wonderful. I'm not minimizing that thing, but that thing doesn't mean there's life being destroyed. And again, I'm not telling you to be flippant about it, because you need to learn lessons about what you're doing with your life, not about that entity you think is there. But that child coming through, it's just cool, because if it's meant to come through, it's going to come through. It'll find a way. And sometimes you're going to have a child that you aborted. And let's just say you aborted, what you believe to be an entity, but a child, a body or whatever. And you have an abortion. And then you say, well, now what happened to that child? Guys, and if you had no children after. But Michael, there's an example of, I never got that child. And it even spoke to me in my dreams before the abortion. And, I had a name for it, a gender. I was really connected. So there really was something, not in your body, but maybe out here. But there was still an entity wanting to come through, and I didn't. So now what do I do? There's an exercise that I do in the big book I wrote called Sacred Sexuality. There's a big book, and it's called A Manual for Living Bliss. In there's an exercise for this. Maybe someday I'll just find a way. I'll just copy it and make it a free download on my website. But there's something like that that you could do that's like a goodbye, a thank you to the child. But what I was leading to is this. Sometimes you say, well, there might have been a child, and it felt like that child was just like a savior, like a light. And then I didn't have it. So now what? Guys, what are you missing here? Do you really have such limited beliefs? If it's a child you connected with, it's still there. It can still be like a guardian angel to you. So connect with it. It's not gone because you're unworthy because you had an abortion. It's there. Just say, beloved sweetheart, I hope you understand. And it'll say, of course I do. And this was challenging and so on. But would you still be with me, my child? Would you still be like, if we were going to do creative things, would you still inspire me with creative things? God, it's amazing if you could see these things clairvoyantly. These things still actually work. It's an amazing thing, this when you get into spirit and not just bodies. You realize there's so much going on that meets the eye. But it's a beautiful thing. So your child could inspire you to create toys for children. But what do I know about toys? I don't even have any children. You do. Let it inspire you. It could inspire you to write children's books. It could inspire you to write poems, but not necessarily all children-related things. It can inspire you to leave the relationship you were in, believe it or not. That's, it's like, Mom, yeah, I don't mind. I don't blame you for getting rid of me, because I'd get out of there too if I were you. Walking out, it does, man. It does happen. There's so many layers that people just don't understand. But the soul will return, and I'm going to say it this way: the soul will return in one form or another. If not through body and become your child, then other forms. I've known cases where the child that was aborted, gone, had another child, and then the aborted soul, the aborted child, the soul of that came as the second or even the third child. And you know, I just think it's a wonderment that I feel for it, to say, wow, look at how much love there is in the universe, that these souls want to be close and they're going to come through anyway. It's kind of like what you think you're doing harmfully towards a soul is more towards yourself. That's what one point I made. But what you think you're doing is kind of like saying, I'll bet that if I drink some alcohol today, I'm probably destroying Archangel Michael. You're not doing anything to the angels. They're beyond your touch, your destruction. And in a way, the souls of your children are beyond your hands' harm. I'm not enabling, but I'm saying they're beautiful beings. They're souls. You're not able to harm a soul with a physical act. You're not. That's why Jesus himself is saying, you're not harming my body. I mean, you're not harming my soul. Just what you do to my body, that doesn't mean anything to me. And that's a big, big part of his whole message. So let the souls of your children, if ever aborted and or miscarried, let it be understood that they're okay. And at the same time, miscarriages are not just karma. Yes, they're your own guilt, karma, and all that, but that's not all they are. Miscarriages are often your like, even if you had an abortion, you have now a miscarriage. Your body's trying to repair itself. So it's saying, the system you have can't maintain a child. So now you have a baby and it miscarries because your body hasn't repaired itself enough yet. So even miscarriages, I know it may sound strange, even twisted, but to me, even miscarriages are an amazing thing to understand when you really get it. It's not loss, loss, loss. It's really development, development, development. And will you develop? Will your body, your womb develop and heal enough? Whether you had abortions or not, it could. If you have miscarriages, something's not right in the body, very clearly. The child might have said, "No, I changed my mind," and it's gone, and it goes and miscarries. Or your body isn't quite right, and so it goes through the process and says, "Oops, sorry." There are birds and animals that have the same thing, where they're ill-equipped, and so every time they give an offspring, it dies before it even develops. Dogs can do that, cats can do it. In their litter, one of them can not be fully developed, and it's just the way it is. And so it's okay that it miscarries, it goes, because it wasn't fully developed. If you could force it to have sustained and lived, it would have been a horrible situation anyway. So it's nature taking its course, I guess you could say, in some regards. And I really believe in the Earth Mother as a huge expression. There's the Universe Mother. I believe in the Divine Mother first and foremost. I believe the universe is like her womb, and I believe the earth is like a manifestation of the egg in that womb, in a sense. But the Earth Mother is an expression of the Cosmic Mother, the Universal Mother, and that she's an expression of the Divine Mother. Just like the human mother is supposed to be an expression of the Earth Mother, which is an expression of the Universal Mother, and so on. But the Earth Mothers, because of free will, are the only twisted ones in the whole, echelon, in the whole hierarchy of expressions of mother, because free will and living out of nature, out of alignment with nature, doing things that don't resonate, and so on and so on. So it's a bit of a bummer that people live that way. But I do believe in the mother, and I believe in the Earth Mother, and I believe just more and more the Earth Mother knows how to recycle. She knows how to take a tree that's been struck by lightning, turns to ash, bring the ash into the earth, and then let that saturate down into the streams, which do something, filtering out the streams because it's ash of some kind. And so there's in some ways like a charcoal effect to clean the streams. I mean, she knows what she's doing. So even if you miscarry, even if you have an abortion, the Earth Mother does not hold you responsible or hurtful towards you, hateful towards you. She'll just recycle. She knows what she's doing. And I would just like you to practice like that. Practice feeling, acting, knowing what you're doing. Live in the zone. Just what feels organic. If I put it if I put it in really kind of simplistic terms, I guess you could say, my slant, my view of this whole thing is that love comes first, okay? And if people really understood what having children is all about, oh, what a different world we would have. It looks like this, basically. Two people come together. They come together. They call it making love, but most of them don't make love. They just have sex. That's all. I don't care what you typically want to call it making love. It's not. Love can't be made. Love is. So I'm in a state of love. You're in a state of love. And then we love each other so much. There's just this beautiful reciprocated sense of, wow, what is this? This is amazing. And then we love each other so much that something just irresistible happens. Something so perfect and organic. The love is so intense, so great, that it can't not have an offspring. The child becomes like, well, I love you so much, my cup runneth over, and it becomes another entity. What you did was we took love and expanded it in the form of another person. And that's absolutely gorgeous if you think about it. What humans do, get together, a little bit of a mood, sometimes neediness, emotion, sometimes neediness physically. Listen, are you in the mood? Sure, me too. They screw each other or whatever. They have sex. They like pounding rocks next to a campfire or something, and that's their version of sex. Wasn't that hot? Yeah. So it's a fever. But you had this thing you call sex, and you think it's great, and then you have a baby. Oops. The whole thing is twisted, you see? The whole thing. And then it's, oops, what are we going to do? I'm sorry. Well, you should have, you should have, Well, I couldn't help it. I was in the mood, And it's just all so screwed up. And then we have these children. And we wonder why they're not always evolved. We wonder why they have doubts and fears and challenges. I mean, what did they come from? Just messed up humans. And I know it's challenging because it's not like we can say, humans shouldn't have children till they're like 45 or 50. When they start getting a clue about life, you can't really put rules and laws out there like that, especially since biologically that would be a little more challenging for some. But humorously, I can say that, people can and really need to evolve more. I don't want to bring a child into the world until I am of an adequate level of consciousness, and that's when it becomes beautiful. The whole concept, and that's in a way that's another talk. The love that can be shared in love making. It's love sharing. I'm not making love. I'm sharing love. I have, and on that note, before we even decide to share love intimately, sexually, which that needs to be an offspring of how much love I feel for you. And kissing has to feel so great. Hugging has to feel so great that I want to kiss you. Kissing has to feel so great. Not arousal-wise, hormonally. I'm talking about the love just keeps growing. And if it's real love, it doesn't end. It doesn't die. It can't. It's unconditional and it's forever. So to me, we go through phases of relationship because we're humans, and then we have phases of our relationship with our children because we're humans. But we're not supposed to be just humans having an experience here. We're spiritual beings, no matter what we think. We are spiritual beings. So take time in your own private moment and give birth to, rebirth your baby as an energy. Say, okay, the baby that I aborted, imagine, I'm not going to do the whole exercise, I'm just saying, imagine a ball of light in your womb and imagine giving birth to that. I'm sure on the internet there's other versions of a process like this, but give birth to that light. Now don't do it and then, well, I better do it again next week because I don't feel complete with it. Try to do it in a way that feels so authentic and sincere and complete, but just give birth to it. Like, come into my life as a soul. Come into my life and breathe its presence into your heart. We are now connected forever. Forever. We're connected. I didn't just almost have a baby, abort a baby. It's gone. It's dead. It went somewhere and I'm going to hell after I die. No, man. just say, oops, my bad, I get it. Let's do that again spiritually and bring it through. So find a process, a ceremony that would feel right for you. And I would also say, if before you do that, if you need to, cry the wounds. You can say goodbye. Don't get too morbid about it, but you can go so far as to, my child, and I'm going to name it so I can say goodbye to it thoroughly and authentically. And if you need to, a little ceremony. If you need to bury it in some symbol, a little seed or something, and bury it in the garden. Put a flower above its spot, and let it be. Plant a tree there if you want to. Just do something that feels like a closure of the pain, and then not obsess on it from here on. Don't tell me you're doing it if you're still obsessing afterwards. Do it, and do it authentically. Feel in the presence of the Mother God. Call her in, the Divine Mother, the Universal Mother, the Earth Mother. Call all of them in. Be with me, sacred beings. And if you need to call some other girls with you to act as midwives in your ceremony, it's absolutely fantastic. Cry together, and also remember to end in the wonderment of, God, now I feel good. I feel complete. I feel whole. I'm a whole woman to a new level. And I feel honor for myself. Would I do any of those same decisions? The wrong guy, the wrong time, getting unhealthy sex, backseat of a car, whatever, and abortions in an alley? No. And when you can say, no, it's not a chance, you really got it. You learned your lessons. Now that's done. You don't need to obsess on guilt and shames. Be at peace. Be at peace. So in this moment, I'm choosing to, for all of us, and we're all involved, even the guys watching. Your wives went through this, your girlfriends went through this, your mom might have gone through it. Unfortunately, my own mom one time said to me, your father was right, we should have aborted you. It was like, wow, that was kind of heavy to hear. But it kind of fits in because I could see, not wanting to be part of their family unit anyway, right? So, but it really kind of hit me and really kind of hurt. But it also speaks to the kind of people they were in terms of their IQ level, their EQ level, and so on. That there wasn't a lot there on a deeper spiritual level. And I'm not saying they were messed up for considering an abortion. I'm saying the throwing that out there to a kid was probably not the sweetest thing in the world. So we guys too feel the effects of this. We feel the terror when a girlfriend gets pregnant. I know some of it's selfish on our part, but there's a lot of stuff for all of us. Even if you've ever heard a girl share her experience with that, boom, you're still part of it. Even if you've never been part first-handedly, we're all together. We're all in this together. So we can all feel compassion, and we can all share in this prayer that we're calling in the Mother. Forgive us, men and women alike, old and young alike. Forgive us, Divine Mother. Forgive us, Holy Divine Mother, for the times that we failed or forgot how to reflect your perfection on this earth. The times we forgot to midwife other people into a new life. The times, and I mean not just literally with babies, but even projects. The times we forgot to be nurturing and compassionate, and the way to hold space, the vessel, the way the womb woman is to do. Forgive us the times we forgot. And I know in your holiness you've already forgiven us. But show us now how to forgive ourselves. Show us how to find grace and peace in our hearts and souls. Help us to say goodbye to the shames and guilts of things we've done to our bodies. We were absolutely acting insanely, selfishly, fearfully. That there's no argument. We were afraid. But today we're choosing to not carry that fear another day. We ask instead just to feel a transformation. We're going to end this with rising to a new level. Our babies that we may have lost, babies, children even that we had and wondered if we should. Any doubts and fears, stories we heard of other people losing children in miscarriages and being devastated, as well as in abortions and feeling such grief for them. Stories on the news and fights politically. All of that energy is here, and we're saying we're choosing to transmute that. We have the power and the right to do that. And we're transmuting that energy with the power of the Holy Spirit that is the Divine Mother. We're taking that energy, we're transmuting it, and we're letting all of those babies slash souls slash experiences, we're allowing them to come to us and give us a whole new level of understanding, lessons learned, and we're launching into new levels of being creators on this planet. Guide us to have holy spiritual pregnancies with every project, every inspiration, even if it means birthing a child. Everything that we do. Let every client of ours, if we're counselors, doctors, nurses, let every client, including our own children, as parents, let everyone that comes to us find a whole, perfect mother in us, the Holy Mother, the Divine Mother. Let us be that image for all beings, because we learned our lessons and we launch into forgiveness and we release into new levels of consciousness. And we soak that in. And we give sincere thanks. And even though the program will end, you can leave it going and just hold this quietly and keep your eyes closed. Or you can shut it off and continue this vibe. Your own prayer extra added, your own extending this further somehow. Whatever you need to do, go ahead and do that. If you didn't hear the beginning of the program, I mentioned you can join us in other ways, so go back and watch the beginning and you'll just catch some of that if you'd like. But definitely soak this in as best you can. And we'll do what we can to post or print at some point the exercise for birthing so that you can use it in ceremony, and or you can find it with each other. You can even post it as you're watching this. If you have a great one, maybe other people would like to see it. I'm happy to help promote that if it's something you have available. All right? So God bless you all. Thank you for listening, especially such a sensitive topic, and I pray that I've done a good job at sustaining that vibe and integrity. And if I didn't, I apologize. But I did what I could, so I hope it helps you in some way. Peace be with all of you. Bye-bye.